Hello, my name is Starry, and I'm joined by my friends on the Starry panel.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
First of all, I would like to give a huge shout out to Mad Guardian LLC for making this brilliant animation for us to use in this podcast. Mad Guardian is a multimedia company run by my good friends who specialize in creating original animation as well as video games. Those are just some of the main things that they do in the company. And it's so cool that they are actually coming out with their debut video game on Steam. So we definitely would like to extend our gratitude to them. And you can read more about Mad Guardian by visiting the link that we have posted in the description box. So thank you, Mad Guardian. So this is a really undesirable habit that we all kind of share that we will be discussing today on this podcast. We all have a tendency to procrastinate. So it really does make things a lot harder than it has to be. And it's kind of like an addiction in a way, because it's really hard for us to refrain from putting things off till later. So first question is, I guess, what are some of your worst experiences with procrastination?
My senior year of high school, I was in an AP English class, and I did barely anything in that class, and it got to the point where I had, I think, a high F, and it was almost the end of the year, and I said, okay, let's get on the grind. And then one day I check, I'm doing some work, and I check my grades, and I see it went up to like a 72%. He had just given me like 16% because he didn't want to deal with me.
That was kind of nice of him.
Yeah, nice of him, or he hates me. I don't know, but he just gave me the points, and I said thanks, I guess. And
Yeah.
I graduated.
So you didn't like turn in any assignments for like the first half of the class, or what?
Towards the end, I got really lazy and complacent. I did barely anything, Some assignments I wouldn't do. Essays would just be turned in late, all that. Some essays I just wouldn't do.
Yeah.
I was a lazy person towards the end of that year.
I think it is the case with senioritis, probably, right?
For sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember in my engineering class, we had to find 30 different patents that related to what we were trying to make, and then write a little summary about a paragraph long for each of them. And I waited until a day before it was due to get all of those done. And it took me probably 7 hours to complete.
Yeah, it stacks up.
Awful.
Yeah, I know how that feels, Will. There's a couple assignments I remember that I used to do that was kind of like that. I guess my worst experience with procrastination has to be December of freshman year in college. So basically, there was a final exam that happened on a Saturday, right? Which is pretty unusual by itself. Like, I'm not used to, going to school or even like thinking about school in the weekends. But that was just how the schedule was set up. So that meant that I had to probably utilize my Friday night to study, which I've never done before up until that point, because like I said, I've never had a final exam on a Saturday. So basically, I had the whole day on Friday to study for that exam. Like, I started about I think 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was on my computer. I just kept remembering that I just got distracted by videos on YouTube and everything, and I just kept putting it off until very much later in the night, around I think 1 a.m. actually. And that was when I first started to flip through my textbook, trying to see if I could memorize the thing, because the exam was at 8 a.m. in the morning. So it was really cramming in the final stretch, so to speak. And because of that, I basically pulled off my first all-nighter in college.
Yeah, that really reminds me of my own experience. I mean, there's several examples I could give of the worst times I procrastinated. But the one that comes to mind
Hmm.
is when I was really behind on my art coursework. So I pulled like 3 all-nighters in a row and would like sleep for half an hour in the afternoon.
Wow.
And I was also like not just in art, but when I was studying forensic science,
Uh-huh.
I couldn't even get one sentence done for the whole night because I was just like watching YouTube and just trying to put it off.
I know because like, and the subject that I was like studying for this like final exam was something that I was actually pretty interested in. It was like globalization and social cultures. So you would think that I would have no problem like studying for it, but because it was in a class format, like it counts as homework, and because it's related to school in that way, and it's like not voluntary, therefore I didn't have the motivation to do it. So next morning, 8 a.m., I took the exam. I was like probably 5% awake. I don't know how I managed to like stumble through it. Like I didn't even drink coffee or anything. I don't drink coffee. Just never have. So, but anyway, I got through it, and like 2 hours later, I caught the flu. So I guess that's how I paid the price for it.
Yeah.
But on the bright side, I got a A on the exam, so I guess that worked out. But
Almost every time where I've been up late and I realize I have something to do that night or the next day, there's a certain point in the night where I go, if I sit here and study, it will not benefit me because I won't be awake tomorrow. I'll be better off just to sleep and figure it out the next day.
yeah,
Like, I'll be taking some test and I'll not know how to do a problem. I'll guess. I'll go to the next question and it's like, oh, hey, here's the answer to the last question. Or I'll teach myself how to do something or make something up on the fly that somehow works.
yeah.
It just works better for me if I can think.
That's like me in math class, Dylan. Because really, like, I mean, trying to take I find it's funny though, because like whenever I take exams, I feel like for some reason, it's not always the case, but I feel like whenever I'm half awake, sometimes I feel like I perform better.
Probably because you're not overthinking. Like when I overthink things, I'll change my answer a lot,
Yeah,
or I'll go through and I'll just miss something 'cause I'm thinking too fast, and then I get things wrong.
and I guess like you
It's
second
balance.
guess yourself, right? Like,
Right.
yeah. So Anissa, like any other examples? You said you had multiple ones that you considered like your worst encounters with procrastination.
Yeah, the other one was when I had a sociology exam. And you know, I used to be on Google Plus, and there was someone who was basically trying to talk to me that very morning of my exam.
Oh, wow.
And I was actually like responding to his messages instead of revising. So this is like last minute exam preparation, and I'm doing that, and I ended up getting ungraded.
Ungraded?
Yeah, that means that I basically failed.
Oh.
Oh. Well, I mean, you did spend time on it, right, beforehand?
Yeah, I tried to as much as I could before that. But like on that morning, I should have been recapping all the things because I was already focusing on, because this is when I was studying forensic science as well. So I was more focused on that. The sociology was just on the side to kind of fill in the time gaps on my timetable. Because in England, you have to be at, we call it college, but it's basically high school for a certain amount of time. I don't think it's as long as how long you're at school in America,
No.
because we would sometimes just go in like 3 days a week, but we had to have enough on our timetable. So I was just doing sociology to fill up my timetable, but I really should have taken the exam seriously.
Yeah, I think that actually counted as a factor that distracted me, Google Plus, because I was on there as well. We actually met there, Anissa. So think I probably was, I don't remember what the conversation was, but on that night that I was supposed to be studying for my globalization exam, the one that I ended up pulling an all-nighter for that I just explained, I'm pretty sure I was caught up in having multiple conversations with multiple people on some social media site. It's just really easy because it's like you feel like you're engaged in like these conversations, and that it's so interesting. You're interacting with people that is changing. Whereas if you're studying something that's stagnant. If that makes any sense.
Right. It doesn't release as much dopamine, so it seems boring in comparison.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I guess the first step to figuring out how to solve this problem would be to get down to the underlying reasons of why we each procrastinate. So have any of you ever explored or maybe asked yourself, why exactly do you procrastinate?
I think for me, it's just an issue of me in the present. I don't want to do anything, but I'm sure that future me can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's a problem for later, not for now.
Right.
Me, I think there was several reasons why. So it was a mixture that made it so bad. It was lack of true passion and interest in the subjects that I was studying. It was lack of willpower, low confidence, perfectionism. So basically I was scared to do it because I wanted it to be at a high standard.
Right.
So yeah, it was just, and also I would come home from college, the last thing that I wanted to do was that boring work. I just wanted to watch YouTube and, relax,
Right.
not think about such boring tasks.
Yeah, exactly. It's I kind of share with your viewpoint on this as well as Will's as well, because for me personally, it's just a matter of interest. That's what it comes down to. It's a personal interest. So, as you all probably know, sloth is one of the 7 deadly sins of man. And unfortunately, I do possess that to a certain extent. I do get lazy. Sometimes there are days where I wake up and just don't want to do anything, So if I'm not interested in doing something like homework or school, it becomes really challenging for me to work up the motivation to do it, especially because I am an artistic individual with a lot of imaginative and creative ideas flickering in my mind every minute. And so it's really easy for me to zone off into my own world and get distracted by those thoughts. And Anissa, you could probably attest to this, but creativity is a spontaneous thing, isn't it?
Right. It is, yeah.
You never know, it's just in a moment's notice. It's just it just happens and you get your best, most creative idea. And because of that, you want to, you become occupied. You just want to keep working on that, and you don't want to go back to doing whatever bland activity that you were doing beforehand,
Exactly. Yeah. And it almost feels unnatural. It's why am I making myself do something that's painful?
Right.
It feels like it's killing your soul.
Right. And if you're not interested in something, I feel like you don't have the heart, you don't have the passion to want to do it. And that's what makes everything great.
Exactly.
So, going off of that, what are some things that you all think we can do to prevent ourselves from procrastinating too often?
I think that's a really good question. So for me, when I was at my worst procrastination stage, when I was in college, no advice from the internet would actually help me. But now that I've kind of overcome that and forgotten about that kind of identity, it's easier to read about a technique on the internet and actually be able to implement it because I have a lot more willpower now. So there's things like the dopamine detox, where you, for a whole day, you don't use the internet, you don't listen to music or eat junk food, and it kind of resets your brain to almost like doing things that are usually boring for you.
It's very, very fascinating. So you
Yeah.
seem to suggest, Anissa, that it's comparable to like a mental addiction in a way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we're addicted to like basically dopamine, the rush of excitement we get when we click on YouTube or social media. We're expecting something good, but we don't get that with like an essay writing or something like that because it's just so boring in comparison. It's like comparing. It's like if you were given a carrot and a chocolate bar, which one are you going to pick? Obviously, you're going to pick the chocolate,
Right.
because, yeah.
Yes, an excellent example actually to illustrate this point. I really do see what you're saying though, Anissa, because like I was explaining with the fact that it's a matter of interest, something has to be interesting in order for your mind to produce endorphins and dopamine, both. So in this case, I can see how this could be a psychological thing. It could be, a lot of people say, I've been looking online for a bit and I've seen a bit of literature, and a lot of people have been saying that procrastination might actually be, it could qualify as like a mental illness.
Yeah, I think it could actually. It's definitely a major problem that a lot of people suffer from. So I feel like if more people, like especially the schools, if they find out, like if they do their research about it and the teachers are informed about it, then hopefully there's like a chance that they'll do something about it, you know, and help the students who are struggling with it.
Right. So do you think maybe like therapy could help in this case, like, or counseling?
Yeah, I think that could definitely help. Yeah.
Because one of my suggestions to prevent ourselves from procrastinating is to, a lot of people don't think about this, but like you could ask your family members, for instance, or your friends even, like whatever your support system is or consists of, to basically help you stay on track through the means of positive and negative reinforcement.
Right. That could definitely help, yeah. When
Right.
you have people supporting you, it's a lot easier because when you're on your own, you just feel isolated and it's quite difficult to do things when you're in that position.
Exactly. That's the thing. And it's interesting that you bring up the health component of all of this, Anissa, because with reinforcement, the idea behind it is basically that it works on a rewards and punishment theory. So basically, in terms of positive reinforcement, for instance, you could have maybe your family member, like maybe your mom or your sister, like reward you with something of value if you complete a certain task, even if you don't want to. And on the flip side, if you want to be cruel to yourself, I guess you could arrange for your family members or your support system to punish you should you not be able to complete that task, or to take away something that you value. Like, for instance, an example would be, when I was younger, my mom would always be afraid that I would get too caught up playing video games, that I would neglect my schoolwork and fall behind. So basically, the reinforcement tactic that she utilized was positive reinforcement. So if I'm able to get good grades, which meant straight A's in school, during the semester, she would then allow me to play video games.
Right. So I agree with the positive reinforcement. I think that's how our brains work more. We thrive off reward. But I don't think that punishment would actually help because I don't think any animals are. Like, I don't think we're wired that way. Because if you tell a child off for doing something, I think they're going to be more tempted to, like, it doesn't prevent them from doing it again. It just puts a kind of guilt in them, and that creates a perpetual cycle because guilt reinforces the identity of I am a procrastinator. I have this problem. And if you have that, like, how are you supposed to stop? So I don't think the punishment method would work, but the positive reinforcement and the rewarding system could definitely help.
That's an excellent point, Anissa. Thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
What do you think, Will?
I've noticed something that helps me is to really just get in the habit of doing work as soon as you get home, because like once you get off like topic, off like your focus of doing work, it becomes a lot harder to actually, you know, get down and start doing some work. And once you get in the habit of like doing it right as you get home, it becomes a lot easier to just, you know, continue with that momentum. Just continue.
Yeah.
Whenever you get home.
That's a great word, Will, to put it, momentum. Because I feel like with everything, in order for things to go successfully, you usually need momentum. Like, it's that drive that keeps you going. So momentum is related to motivation, and in that way you're more likely to succeed with whatever task that you're trying to do.
Yeah, and also it's a good point that he said, habits, because humans are habitual routine creatures. So
Right.
If we have a routine, we like to stick to it. And if we're not used to, you know, making ourselves do work, that's like, you know, unusual for us. It's quite difficult to get into the habit. So you need to consciously form the habit of coming home and getting started on the work. You know, hopefully it should continue that way. Yeah.
It's interesting because like you have to consciously get yourself into the habit of doing it with the goal that in the future you won't have to be consciously aware of doing that.
Yeah.
Isn't that strange?
It is.
It's kind of like I would compare it to everybody's morning routine. Like, you brush your teeth, you know, a lot of people floss, you know, you really should floss, by the way, side note. But you get in the habit of doing that, like, you don't really, like, you're not even aware, you don't really think much if you're doing this, you know. Like, nobody gets excited about like brushing your teeth and flossing your teeth unless you're like a dentist, right? So
Yeah.
in that sense, it's like you kind of accustom yourself to doing something so that you won't be aware of it and you won't think much of it, and it becomes routine basically.
Yeah. But I think in terms of schoolwork, it depends on the difficulty of it.
Sure.
If a task is too difficult, then it's kind of hard to just, you know, without really thinking much of it, just get started and just do it. That's not quite, like, it's not very easy, because it means that you have to put your effort into it and, you know, use your brain and use your energy. So that's kind of, yeah, that could be quite off-putting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the downside of it.
Oh, that's absolutely true. Yeah, I've experienced that feeling many a times when I come across assignment that just like requires a lot of additional research, and it's like I'm even less motivated to do that now, you know?
Yeah.
So that's definitely true.
Yeah.
And going along the lines of making a routine schedule for yourself, I really think that to-do lists are a great way to help organize your day so that you can effectively use your time, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Because I remember in my engineering class, our teacher would have us make a to-do list at the beginning of every class. And as soon as we started doing that, our productivity like went up so much. Like we got so much more done within the hour.
Right.
Mm.
And I think part of that, Will, is because, as you alluded to earlier, I think one of the things is that you need to have a target, like a goal, if you want to get something done. You know, you have to have a goal that you can work towards, and you have to feel like you're actually moving to that goal. So a to-do list or like a schedule or itinerary helps you to accomplish this, because it's kind of like creating an outline for organizing the flow of events when you write a paper or an essay. So I personally find it that it's so much easier to stick to doing something when you can physically remind yourself that you are accomplishing something, which is why a to-do list comes in handy.
Yeah, they're definitely really good.
I think it's also if you are like financially able to, then it would be a good idea to invest in a private tutor if your family can't help you. Because I find that if I have someone next to me kind of like just encouraging me to continue, and also like being there to ask for help if necessary, then it's much easier. That was like basically what saved me during the time that I was at school. If I didn't have a private tutor, I think I was just like failed everything.
Right. And you know, going along those lines, I just feel like if you get a good student tutor, which it sounds like you had an exemplary one, Anissa, but you know, if you have a good tutor, you can kind of relate to them, your feelings, your emotions. You're not talking to a robot, you know. It's like you're talking to somebody and you're interacting with someone who is willing to work with you to kind of help steer you in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And just knowing that sometimes, like, you know, they care about what you have to say and they actually are receptive to your feelings, that makes it all the more easier for you to open up for their instruction.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think this concludes our session on procrastination. And thank you very much for all my friends. I'm really happy to see that all of our ideas really like align.
Oh yeah, we were able to connect a lot of things that we had to say.
Absolutely. Anyway, we do have a Patreon page, so be sure to check that out. And if you like what you see, you want to hear more, you want to participate, go on there, check out our tiers. We have different rewards for people. Remember to leave lots of comments because we love hearing your input. And join us next time for another discussion. This is Starry, signing off.